Gur Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is the Daf Yomi from Maseches Sotah on Erev Pesach Zayin Amud Aleph 7a. Daf Yomi tells us, Ketzad Osela, that how would the husband bring his wife to the Bezdin if he wants to cause her to drink the bitter waters after he accused her of being a Sotah and after she was found secluded with another man. So Malicho found secluded with the man who he had warned her about. Malicho Bezdin Sheba Oso Malcolm. He brings her to the court that is in that place, i.e., the court in Jerusalem, the Bezdin Agadol, the essential court. And he gives her two Torah scholars, and we give him two Torah scholars to accompany him on the road. Shema Yavo Abaderach. We're worried he might have relations with her on the road while he's traveling to take her to the court. And if he would have relations, then she would be unable to. The bitter waters wouldn't test her anymore. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Bawa Nemanolel. Rabbi Yehuda says no. The husband does not need to. They don't need to send two witnesses. The husband is trusted to not be with her. So first the Gemara asks, and the fact that we see that you need two witnesses, doesn't this prove Trey the EU Hatlasa? Doesn't that prove that you need three men around her? Otherwise, there's a concern about yichud, about seclusion, and a woman is not allowed to be secluded with a man. And the Gemara in Kedushin tells us that this seclusion is even with two men, in case one of them has to go to the bathroom. So Trey the EU Hatlasa. So that's three. Maybe this is a proof for Rav's position. That Rav said, when do we say that two people is sufficient for yichud, and it's not yichud if she's with two men? That's only while they're in a city of a bederach. But if they're traveling, you need three men. Shema yitzdarach echad man l'nekav. Let's say one of them will need to go to the bathroom. And then the other one will be left with the prohibited woman who he's prohibited from. So therefore, you need to always have three men when you're traveling in case one of them leaves to go to the bathroom. So maybe our Mishnah is a support for Rav, who says you always need three when you're traveling. Where it says no. Well, what's the reason here why we require three? Why we require two witnesses to accompany him? Why do we have two Torah scholars accompanying? So that there will be witnesses. So that there be witnesses accompanying him. And the witnesses need to be able to testify that he was with her so that they don't give her the bitter water to drink. Mara asks another question. You mean to say that the only people who could be witnesses are Torah scholars? Why do they have to be specifically Torah scholars? Maybe there's a support for another statement of Rav. The Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. The Rav Yehuda said the name of Rav was Shanuel Kasherin. When do we say that? Only with respect to Ksherin. When do we say that yichud is that there's no yichud with two men when they're or three men if you're on the road? When they're kosher people, avol prutzin, but if they were irreputable people, afilu asar namilo, then even 10 men wouldn't be sufficient. You can't have yichud even with 10 men. Because in Ma'aseh there was an incident, Mutziu asara b'mita, and they found her with 10 men in the same bed. And so we see that the people who accompany her need to be Torah scholars. So that's what Rav was saying. And maybe that's why this is support for Rav from our Mishnah. The Gemara says, no. What's the reason why they're required to send her with 10 men? We need people who know how to warn her. And these Torah scholars know how to warn him. These Torah scholars know how to warn him, and they tell him that if you have relations with her after she's required to drink the bitter waters, and the bitter waters aren't going to work, and you're not going to give her the bitter waters, you're going to have to divorce her. They need to know how to warn him. Rashi says, Torah. They have to say to him that biblically speaking, when when the man is not free from sin, the waters aren't going to work because he had relations with her when he wasn't allowed. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, her husband is believed. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Bala Neman, her husband is believed. Why do we believe the husband and we don't require two witnesses to go along with him? It's from a logical proof. And what's the proof? Nida, she bekares, just like a woman who's in nida, that if her husband is going to be with a woman when she's her menstrual flow, that's a punishment of kares. But Bala Neman Allah, but the husband is believed to be with her and doesn't require any witnesses. He's allowed to be in the same room with her. Sotah she belav, sotah, which is a regular prohibition, and he's not allowed to be with her. It's just a lav that because it says in the pasuk that if you're married to a woman and then she's with another man, you're not allowed to return to be with her. And that's what the Gemara in Yevamos explains on Yud Aleph from a base. Is that the lav is as follows. The prohibition is mani mekayim achrei asher hutma'al rabo sotah shenistara. So that's how the Gemara in Yevamos learns out that it's just a regular prohibition. So therefore, kol shekain, for sure the husband should be believed. The Rabbanan who say that the husband is not believed because they say that's exactly the point. That's exactly the reason why we don't believe the husband in this case. Nida, that in the case of Nida, we're going to believe the husband dekares because it's a punishment of kares, chamirulay, so it's stricter for him. Umehemen. And so therefore we're going to believe him because he's going to be more worried because it's a severe penalty. But the case of a sotah, the lav, it's just a regular prohibition. Well, chamirulay, it's not as strict. V'lo mehemen, and we're not going to believe him. Rabbi Yehuda, so the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda mikava chomer ma'isila. Is Rabbi Yehuda going to derive this from mikava chomer? Well, Rabbi Yehuda mikrai ma'isila. Rabbi Yehuda learns it out not from mikava chomer, but from a verse. Titanya, because what does the pasuk say? The pasuk says, "Ve'hevi ha'ish es ishto el hakohen." The man. So Rabbi Yehuda derives the fact that the husband is believed in this case from a kal v'chomer. What's the kal v'chomer? Excuse me, not from a kal v'chomer, from a pasuk, because it says the man brings his wife to the kohen. Minat Torah ish mevias ishto. Biblically speaking, a husband can bring his wife himself. That's what the Brisa says. But the Torah says to bring the two scholars have to accompany him. Maybe you'll have relations with her on the road. Whereas so biblically speaking, the husband can bring, but rabbinically we require two Torah scholars. Rabbi Yossi Omer Bawa Neman Olam Mikava Chomer. That Rabbi Yossi says the husband is believed from Mikava Chomer. Mani Dashi Bekaris Bawa Neman Olam Soti Shibalavu Kol Shekain. It's the same Kava Chomer that we had attributed to Rabbi Yehuda before. He said that just like a nida is Bekaris and the husband is believed, so for sure by a regular prohibition the husband will be believed. Amar Lo, the Chachamim responded to Rabbi Yossi, no. Well, here they have a different argument. They said the husband is believed by a nida because she's not prohibited forever. It's just prohibited for a period of time. Eventually, she'll be permitted to him. That's why we believe him to be able to control himself. But by a sotah, there is never going to be allowed. Well, so the Omer, and he'll say, "Ma'am genuvim yim taku," and he'll say, "Stolen waters are sweeter." Since she's never going to be allowed, it's going to be too enticing for him to withhold. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer Minat Torah ish mevias ishto el hakohen. Rabbi Yehuda says, biblically speaking, the husband can bring his wife to the kohen, as it says, "Ve'hevia ish es ishto." So as it says, the man brings his wife. So Amar so we see from here, Rabbi Yehuda is not based upon a kal v'chomer, but he's based upon the pasuk. So why did we say before that it was based upon? Why did we say before that it was based upon the kal v'chomer when here it's based upon the pasuk? So the Gemara explains, Amru kal v'chomer bereisha uparchua. At first he said it was the kal v'chomer. What was the kal v'chomer? And he did kares, and so it was just the lav. And then they broke that kal v'chomer. V'hadar amru ukra. And then after they broke the kal v'chomer, he told them the pasuk. And what's the pasuk? That the pasuk is Ve'via ish es ishto. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda hainu Tanakama. What's really the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama? Both of them are saying that it's based upon the pasuk of Ve'evi ish es ishto. Rabbi Yossi says it's based upon the kal v'chomer, and Rabbi Yehuda is saying it's based upon the Kal V'chomer. So they both start off by saying it's based upon the Kal V'chomer. So what's the distinction? What's the distinction between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda? So they say the distinction is that Rabbi Yehuda Ika Benaye Avo Amru. That the distinction between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda is based upon the fact that Rabbi Yehuda does not say Avo Amru, meaning to say that according to Rabbi Yossi, so basically that the Chachamim, so the Avo Amru, so the difference between them is this point that the Chachamim said that we give him 2 Torah scholars, maybe he's going to have relations with him, meaning to say that the Anakam is over the position that the husband is believed biblically speaking. Nevertheless, we have to be strict rabbinically, whereas Rabbi Yehuda, meaning to say Rabbi Yehuda is the same as Tanakama, except the Rabbi Yehuda, the Tanakama says we have to be strict rabbinically, whereas Rabbi Yehuda says that Rabbi Yehuda does not say we have to be concerned about that. Rabbi Yehuda says even that we don't have to be concerned rabbinically that the husband needs to be escorted. And so that's the distinction between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama. Tanakama says we rabbinically require him to be escorted, but not biblically. And the Rabbi Yehuda says even rabbinically we require him to be escorted. Rabbi Yehuda says even rabbinically we don't require him to be escorted. Says the Mishnah, we take her up to the court. We take her up to the court in Jerusalem. We intimidate her. The same way we intimidate the witnesses who are coming to testify to put somebody to death. And we say to her, Biti, we say, my daughter, a lot of people drink too much wine. A lot of people make too much laughter. A lot of people do act childishly. There are a lot of bad neighbors. Do it for God's great name's sake. Which was written with holiness. We don't want God's name to be erased in water, because the Sotah she's going to drink, a passage from the Torah which outlines the Sotah and has God's name in it, so God's name will be erased. We don't want God's name to be erased. So we say, do it for God's name. And we say in front of her words that are not appropriate to hear. She and her whole, the family and her father's home. And the Gemara is going to explain what these words are. If we say, listen, if she says, you know what, I did sin, she breaks her ksuva, and we break her ksuva. She goes out of the marriage without collecting her ksuva, and then she leaves. And she doesn't drink the bitter waters. But if she says, listen, I never sinned, we take her up to the eastern gate on the opposite side of the western wall, and there, what happens when she gets there? That is the gate of the Shar Nikanor, the Nikanor gates. That's where they would give the Sotah women the water to drink, and that's where the women who are coming, who are giving birth, and they go there to be purified. The Gemara is going to explain what that means. And the Mitzorah, who has to have the blood placed upon his body by the Kohen, that's where he has it done, outside the gates of the Nikanor. The Kohen oches bivigdal, the Kohen grabs a hold of her garments, im nikru, if it tears, it tears, im nifru, if it's revealed, it's revealed, until he uncovers even up to her heart. The Sotah Sarah, he uncovers her hair. Rabbi Yehuda says in Mayaliba Noah that if she was especially attractive, he wouldn't reveal her clothes, reveal her skin. If she was beautiful hair, he wouldn't undo the hair. If she had been wearing white clothing, she now has wear black clothing. If she was wearing golden jewelry, on the top of Zion Amud Beis, Vikatliot, and if she was wearing, basically, the Katliot is like a necklace around her neck. Rashi says it goes around her neck. Vitabo, Nizam and Vitabos, if she was wearing different types of rings, Mavir mimena, we remove them all from her kedela navla in order to make her look unattractive. Then we bring an Egyptian rope. We're on the top of Zion Bays, 7b. Then we bring an Egyptian rope, the kosher. We tie it above her chest. Whoever wants to see her should come and see. We don't allow her slaves or servants to see. Because ironically, if she sees them, she'll gain a lot of strength and she won't confess because she'll say, my slaves, I'm above them. But all the other women are going to be permitted to see her, as it says, that all the women should take musar for themselves, should take rebuke and not sin as a result of seeing her what she's done. What's the source for this idea? What's the source for what idea? So Rashi tells us to buy bezin agadol, that we need to bring her to the central court in Jerusalem. Rashi says, granted, we need to bring her to Jerusalem to drink her the water because it says Lifnei Hashem. And how do we know that we have to bring her to the bezin agadol, which is 71? How do we know it's not okay with just a court of 23? And how do we know that a court of 23 wouldn't be sufficient? So the Gemara says, Torah. It says we make a gzera shava from the word Torah. It says here, V'asala Kohen is Torah, that the Kohen should do to her this entire Torah. And it says also there, where is there? By a rebellious elder, a person who sinned, who's also brought before the Sanhedrin. Al Pia Torah Sher Yerucha. It says about the Sanhedrin that he sins. And there, by a rebellious elder, it's b'shivim ve'echad. It says the word Torah. Avkan b'shivim ve'echad. Also here, it's a court of 71. So, my minolel, we intimidate her. Veraminu, is this really the case? Don't we say kederach shemay minolel shelo tishteh? Are we really going to intimidate her not to drink? But we have another verse that says that just like we intimidate her not to drink, we also intimidate her to drink. Omrim law, we say to her, BT, my daughter, and barucha davar shetahora at, if you're so certain that you're pure, amdi al boryech vishasi, stand up on your feet and drink. Lefisha ein mayim amarim domin el lasam yavesh. So when I said amdi al boryech, that really means stand up on your on your innocence. Boryech is your innocence. He said, stand up on your innocence. Boryech, like clean, and drink. Mayim amarim domin el lasam yavesh, because the bitter waters are similar only to a medicine that is shemuna habasar chai, that's placed upon flesh. If there's a wound there, the medicine is going to work. In shamaka, but if there's no wound, the medicine's not going to work at all. So why are we telling her? Why does our Mishnah say we tell her to confess and not drink when the Brisa says to tell her to drink? Where it says Lotasha. Now, if it's before the Megillah has already been erased, the scroll of God's name, then we try to tell her to confess so we don't have to erase God's name. But once the Megillah has been in the water and God's name has been erased, then we want to tell her then we say, if you're innocent, don't confess, drink the water. This is something to really notice. On the eve of Pesach, we have in our Gemara the word Haggadah, that we say in front of her, Dvarim shel Haggadah. We say to her words of Haggadah. And what does this mean? We say in front of her the words of Haggadah. We talked to her about the things that happened in the earlier sources. So we see the Haggadah. What is Haggadah? Haggadah is things that are meant to inspire. That's what we're seeing. This word Haggadah. I don't really know too often where else we see this word Haggadah like this. This might be the only time in Shas. I'm trying to remember another time. I'm sure I'm wrong. I'm sure I'm missing. But this is the word Haggadah, which has the same meaning as the Pesach Seder. That Haggadah is things that are written in the earlier days, which we're telling you in order to inspire you. That's what the Haggadah means here. So we say to her words of Haggadah, Umaisem Sheiru B'Ksuvim Arishonim. Could go, like for example, things that happened. Asher Chachamim Yagidu Velo Ki Chadumi Avosam, as it says in Job, what wise men have told and not concealed from their fathers. Meaning to say that they expounded that verse to include the confessions of Judah and Reuven, that they said their sins and they didn't hide it from their fathers. Yehuda, Hoda, Judah admitted below Bosh, and he wasn't embarrassed. Mahaya Sofo, what happened to Judah in the end? Nachal Chaye Oam. Then he inherited the world to come. Chaye Oam Abba. Reuven Oda Bosh. Reuven admitted, didn't conceal it. Mahaya Sofo. What happened to him in the end? Nachal Chaye Oam Abba. He also inherited the world to come. So Gemara says, Umas Charan, what's their reward for Reuven and Judah? The Gemara asked the question, what do you mean Mas Charan? Kidekamrina, like we just said what their reward was. Mas Charan Bo'am Azeh. What's their reward in this world? Oh, I'll tell you what's their reward in this world. The reward in this world is Lahem with Adam Nitna Aretz. It says in the next verse, Lahem with Adam Nitna Aretz. To them alone will the world be given. So, and a stranger will not pass through it. So that Judah merited the kingship, and Reuven merited to be the first one to receive an inheritance because he got the part on the other side of the Jordan. And no stranger passed between them, meaning to say Judah and Reuven, there was no separation between their blessings. That's what Rashi says. It means that when Moshe blessed them, that when Moshe came to bless them, there was nobody in between them. That's what Rashi says. Bishlam of Yehuda Ashkanda Ode. So the Gemara says, well, we know where Judah admits it. Judah recognized Tamar. He said, she's more righteous than me. How do we know that Reuven admitted this sin? That he sinned with his father's concubine, with Bilhah. What do you mean when it says, let Reuven live and let him not die? And then it says, and this is for Judah. All the days that the Jewish people were in the wilderness, the bones of Judah were broken in the coffin. They weren't connected. Moses came and requested mercy for Judah. Moshe says, God, who caused Reuven to admit his sin? Judah. Vizos Yehuda. As it says, this is for Judah. Miyad Shema Hashem Kol Yehuda. Immediately it says, immediately God stands up. Miyad Shema Hashem Kol Yehuda, and all of Israel Shafa. So immediately God heard this, and Judah's bones were connected. And where did Reuven hear this? So Rashi tells us, when Judah said about Tamar, she's more righteous than me, Amad Reuven v'Amar Blibasi, Amad Reuven v'Amar Belbalsi Yitzui Ava. Reuven stood up and said, I messed up the Yitzui of my father. V'achshav Yosi Reuven Sholdo Kayemes Kilu Huchai V'Zosul Yehuda Shumis Galgal. And so now V'achshav Yechi Reuven. So now Reuven will live because his Sholdo was Kayemes, because his the spinal cord will be resurrected, and it's as though he's alive. And whereas Judah, he's his bones are rolling, and so it's not appropriate. So God heard this, and he caused Judah's bones to go back together. But still, we'll have a Kaimolina lay back to the Gemara Masifta Derakia. They weren't taking Judah into the yeshiva in Shemayim. And it says Velamot Vienu. So they brought Judah into the yeshiva. We'll have a Kayada Mishkal Mitrach Bishmaita Bade Rabbanan. Still, Judah couldn't follow the Shaklan Tarya of the Daf Yomi up in Shemayim. Not the Daf Yomi, obviously. The deepest levels was what Judah wasn't able to chop. So he was still being punished. Yadav Ravlo. So Lava Kasakol Shmaita Liba Deochasa, but still in Shemayim, Yehuda couldn't chop the pshat according to halacha. He couldn't pass in the shayla. Ve'ezer mitzarav tiyeh. So then he was able to do it. Bishlam Yehuda da'odi ki echid lo titzarav Tamar. I understand why Judah admitted this sin. He didn't want Tamar to be burned. El Reuven lama le da'odi. Why did Reuven not? Why did he admit it? Amar Rav Sheshes. Chatzif alay the mefaret chatei. The person who enunciates says their sins in public is chutzpahdik, is arrogant to say, "Oh, I did this sin. I did this sin." So he did it. He didn't want his brothers to be suspected by Jacob. When you don't want your brothers to be suspected, then it's appropriate to say your sin in public. However, stop the recording here. And God willing, if those who can will join at